All right, Cowboy Nation, let's get into it because the decisions coming up for this franchise are not small. We are not talking about minor adjustments or quiet moves in the background. We are talking about picks that could define the next 3 to 5 years of Dallas Cowboys football. And if you have been following this team, you already know the margin for error is thin, real thin. So before we go any further, one fan to another, hit that subscribe button and drop your take in the comments because this conversation is too important to have one way. You ready? Let's go. All right, pick 12 and pick 20. 2 first-round picks, 2 opportunities to change the identity of this roster. And right now, the fan base is split right down the middle on what Dallas should do with them. Some people want to trade back. Some people want to go defense with both. Some people are throwing offensive names into the conversation and acting like the board is going to cooperate. And that last part is exactly where I want to start, because there is a fundamental misunderstanding happening in this fan base about how this draft actually works. And if you do not understand the draft, you will not understand the decision. So let us lay the foundation first. This is not a good draft class. I need you to hear that clearly. This is not 2014. This is not one of those years where blue-chip talent is stacked 4 and 5 deep at every position, and you can afford to be cute with your picks. The names people keep throwing around, Jeremiah Love, Ruben Bain, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, they all sound great when you say them out loud. They sound like a plan. But here is the reality check nobody wants to give you. I ran through a recent mock, and every single one of those guys was gone before pick 7. Not pick 10, not pick 11, pick 7, gone. So the idea that Dallas sits at 12 and just picks their favorite name off a highlight reel is not a plan. That is a fantasy, and this fan base deserves better than fantasy. Now here is what I believe, and I want you to stay with me on this. You do not trade out a pick 12, not in this draft, not when the class is this thin at the top, because when you trade back in a draft in this shallow, you are not getting value, you are getting exposure. You are exposing yourself to a board that has already been picked clean by the time you make your move, and there is a reference point that should haunt every Cowboys fan who thinks trading back is the smart play. Remember what the Giants did? They passed on a generational talent. They passed on a guy who became a cornerstone defender for a divisional rival. They traded back looking for volume, looking for day 2 picks, and they came out of it with Kadarius Toney. That is not a strategy. That is a disaster dressed up as analytics. Dallas cannot afford to outthink itself at pick 12. Trust the tape. Trust your eyes. Make the pick. And here is the philosophy that actually works in a draft like this. If you have done your homework in free agency, if you have gone out and addressed the groceries at the positions of need through the market, then you have the freedom to take the best player available at 12, regardless of position. That is not reckless. That is how you build. If Dallas goes out and handles the secondary in free agency, if they bring in real bodies at corner and safety who can play, then sitting at 12 and taking a special player at any position becomes not just acceptable, but correct. You are not reaching. You are rewarding yourself for doing the early work right.
Now, the only offensive player that even enters the conversation at 12 for me is Jeremiah Love. That is it. One name. And even that conversation comes with conditions, because if he is not there, we are talking about the best defensive player on the board, period. No hesitation, no second guessing. You make the pick and you move forward. The defense last season was a problem that went beyond just bad personnel. It was coaching. It was scheme. It was free agent misses. It was draft misses compounding on top of each other year after year. But that does not mean you fix it by panicking at 12 and reaching for a guy just because he plays defense. Reaching is reaching, and a bad pick at 12 does not fix the defense. It just adds another bad pick to history books. To be honest with you, what scares me most about this draft is the offensive tackle situation, and not for the reason you might think. The scary part is not that Dallas might need a tackle. The scary part is that if those offensive tackles are still on the board when Dallas picks, it means the run on defenders never happened. It means the guys you needed to come off the board early are still sitting there staring at you. And now you are in a neighborhood where somebody in that draft room starts talking about taking a tackle because he was 5th on the board. And then Terrence Steele is out of the lineup, and you are sitting there wondering what just happened to your defensive rebuild. You do not want to be in that neighborhood. You need general managers around the league to fall in love with guys. You need the irrationality of the draft to work in your favor for once. And that is the real conversation about pick 12. It is not just about who Dallas wants. It is about who everybody else takes before them. You need receivers going in the top 10. Historically, that happens. Historically, at least 2 receivers go in the top 10 of most drafts. But this year, the consensus of the top 15 receivers is tagged. Maybe 1 or 2 others sneak into that conversation, but it is not loaded. So you need teams to fall in love with. You need a combine performance that makes a general manager reach. You need a Micah Lemon 40 time that breaks the internet. You need Jordan Tyson, if he is healthy, to remind everybody why he was a talking point in the first place. Because Tyson went from Colorado, where he did basically nothing, transferred to Arizona State and went crazy, and then went back to Deion and apologized. That tells you something about his character. That matters. And when the football stuff matches the character stuff, combining season becomes dangerous for draft boards. The point is, Dallas needs movement ahead of them. They need chaos in the top 11 picks because chaos creates opportunity. And right now, the Cowboys need opportunity more than they need anything else at that draft position. Now let us talk about pick 20, because this is where the strategy actually gets interesting. If 12 is about trust and conviction, 20 is about leverage. And I think you trade back from 20. I think you get on the phone and you find a team that wants to move up and you extract a day 2 pick out of them so that Dallas can actually participate on day 2 of this draft in a meaningful way. Because right now, without that, you are looking at a situation where the Cowboys make 2 first-round picks and then go quiet. And quiet does not build roster. Quiet does not fill the gaps. If you can finesse somebody into giving you a 2027 pick on top of the day 2 asset, even better. You make that call. You work on the phones. You manufacture value from a pick that you are not as locked in on anyway. And here's why that matters. The depth of this roster still has holes that a single pick cannot solve. Linebackers still need attention. The secondary needs numbers, not just starters. Special teams continuity matters. You cannot address all of that with 2 picks and a prayer. You need to be active on day 2. You need picks in rounds 2 and 3 to give yourself the volume that a thin roster demands. Trading back from 20 is not a weakness, it's a construction. It's building the foundation properly instead of just putting up walls and hoping the structure holds. To be honest with you, there's a version of this draft where Dallas nails pick 12, trades back from 20, comes out of day 2 with 2 or 3 real contributors, and walks out of the entire weekend looking like the most disciplined front office in the building. That's the ceiling. But it requires discipline at 12. It requires not falling in love with a name just because it sounds good in April, because April names don't play in September. Football players play in September. And that brings me to something I have to say, even if it bothers some people. The Cowboys fan base has been burned enough times by draft day excitement that turned into October disappointment. We have seen the picks that looked right on paper fall apart on the field. We have seen the trades that made sense in theory leave the roster thinner than before. The margin is gone. There is no more runway for philosophical mistakes on draft day. You make the pick at 12 that your eyes told you to make 6 months ago, not the pick Twitter told you to make the night before. Your eyes, your tape, your conviction. Because the teams that win drafts are not the teams that had the best April. They are the teams that did the work in January and February and then had the discipline to follow it all the way through to the podium. Dallas is at a crossroads in this draft. 2 first-round picks is a gift. Do not waste the gift reaching. Do not waste it overthinking. Do not waste it trying to be clever when the moment calls for being right.